Well, hello and a very warm welcome to our new and improved Sporting Life time form collaboration weekend racing preview. We'll have a catchier title next time, hopefully, to save that mouthful every week. The idea here is to cut to the chase, highlight our best bets for the key upcoming action. So we'll invariably be focusing on the major Saturday racing throughout the year, but we may wish to branch out into some of the fantastic flat festivals coming our way through the summer months. We'll kick off with the briefest of introductions because it'd be rude not to, above all else. I'm Matt Brocklebank, part of the Sporting Life Racing team, and this week I'm joined by Timeform duo, flat editor David Johnson and senior racing analyst Matt Gardner. Thanks for your time, gentlemen. And lo and behold, it's Lincoln Week. Surely the time of year that you look forward to just about above all others, DJ, unless I've completely misjudged you and all that you stand for.
I know you're spot on. It's like so many times we've been watching these dull three-runner novice chases on a Saturday afternoon and thinking, come on, when's the Lincoln? When's the Lincoln? And finally it's here. I get what I deserve because it's going to be on quicker ground than what I was expecting. And it's looking like my anti-post Fancy King Gothica might end up being withdrawn because of unsuitably fast ground for the time of year. So like I say, I sort of get what I deserve almost, given how I've been looking forward to it that much.
Looks quite well handicapped, doesn't he? Matt, just before we get on to some of those key Lincoln contenders and where our money's going to be going, I realise I'm springing this on you somewhat, but do you think some of these, there might just be an extra bit of pressure on some of these sort of big name trainers this spring, having had to miss the best part of 3 months around this time last year? Can't have been easy keeping sort of owners and everyone on board throughout those COVID times and everything that's had to throw at the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty hectic, understandably, last year, wasn't it? Through the summer, trying to cram in as much as possible into a fairly limited time. So obviously back more on an even keel this time around. And yeah, like you say, I suspect a fair few will be pretty keen to get them up and running nice and early for sure.
So the Lincoln then, I know, DJ, you might be looking a bit further afield and sticking to some of the all-weather action when it comes round to best bets. But let's focus on the big race, the Unibet Lincoln. Nice, easy puzzle to solve. 22 runners, straight mile at Doncaster. Hakiki's the favourite, isn't he? He's the one that we've got to kick off with, really. And all pretty positive when it comes to him. I think, Gosden and Gosden, as we need to call them now, lightly raced 3-year-old. He's got a crack £7 claimer in the saddles, one on decent ground, one at Doncaster. He's bred to improve with age. He's had a gelding operation since we last seen him. Is there, other than maybe the jockey's relative lack of experience, are there any negatives apart from that distinct lack of juice in his price?
I think you've hit the nail on the head with the negative, and it's just his price, because other than that, he ticks all the boxes you'd expect. He was really progressive towards the back end of last year. I think he's only gone up £8 for his last win. That was impressive. Obviously, like you mentioned, the jockey, I think it's not a real negative as such. He's looked so good on the all-weather. I don't think that there's going to be any real concerns about him being just as good on turf. But,
big day for him, though, isn't it? Really big ride for him.
Absolutely. I mean, what we've seen of him interviewed in front of the camera over the winter, he looks like he's got a pretty cool head on his young shoulders. So I wouldn't be too concerned about his lack of experience. It's just, like you mentioned, it's the 22-runner race. There's 3 or 4 in there, a couple that have a similar profile to him as well. It's just the old price against chance argument that's his downfall, really.
Matt, is there anything just right up there towards the top of the betting, whether it is Hakiki himself or something that you think is really solid?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got a problem with Hakiki at all. Like you two, it's the price thing. I think he was about 4th fav before they announced the jockey booking, wasn't he? So some 3rd or 4th favourite. So, his chances there. I think one that has, to be honest, a very similar profile really is Danya for Owen Burrows. Similarly progressive, open to, I think, just as much improvement going into his 4-year-old campaign. He looks all over a 4-year-old physically. Really impressive at Haydock on his final start. I actually came into this race sort of looking at River Nymph, going back to that Newbury win. Daniel was 3rd that day, and that's kind of what put me onto him a little bit. it was a really weird race. The two Tranchi, I think, were second, and River Nymph pretty much had it to themselves from about 2 furlongs out. Daniel was on the wrong part of the track. He had to switch, do a lot of running just to get onto their coattails, really. He then went to Ripon, didn't seem to best effect. He was beaten by a couple that won on their next starts as well. Probably shaped best that day, I think. And then, like I say, impressive at Haydock. My only slight question is whether a strongly run mile, maybe into what looks like is going to be a headwind on Saturday, is really going to be up his street. But I think bury him in behind runners, play him, for a bit of a late burst. And for me, 7-2 Hakiki, Daniel's around the sort of 11, 12 to 1 mark. On profile and potential, I don't think there's anywhere near that much in it between the two of them.
Yeah, he's a very keen goer, isn't he? Wears the hood, first time out. Interesting to see if he's able to settle in the race under Kieran Schumacher. Obviously, again, another potential poignant winner of the race, what with him being in the Hamdan Silks, and the favourite as well. I think he's owned by Sheikh Hamdan's daughter as well. So yeah, it could be a really poignant moment in this year's Lincoln. Personally, I've got a couple of fancies in this. I thought maybe Born to Alive. I mean, as much as big Newmarket trainers have done really well in the Lincoln, the locals have held their own, certainly in the last sort of 10, 15 years. And I thought Born to Alive was just being a little bit underestimated, already effectively defied this mark of 102 when winning the trial. And I know you said it was a strongly run Lincoln, and it invariably is, but I don't see a huge amount of sort of blazing pace, certainly like in a particular part of the track. I suspect they are probably going to come sort of more down the middle in a bunch, aren't they? Joe Hans among the confirmed front runners, I think. But Born to Be Alive will be up there. And I think if you go back, there's not many 7-year-olds go close in the Lincoln, but not many will have come into it with this sort of profile. And if you go back to his 4-year-old days, he was actually second to Zabil Prince in the mile on this very card. And obviously Zabil Prince went on to win Group 1 races, and he'd come into this that race on the back of 4 runs, 3 of which were in Maidan. But it's interesting that Carl Burks followed the same sort of preparation this time around, and I thought he was quite good in the trial, and he carries the penalty, but he's due to go up a couple of pounds again, so he's well in. He's actually well handicapped on factually, what we've seen, what we know of him, rather than on potential. So at 20 to 1, 25 to 1 in places, I thought he could be interesting. And Ascension was the other one for Roger Varian. I think surely a matter of time before Varian and Atzini win a Lincoln, given their fantastic record at this meeting in particular, and obviously at the course in general. Just onto a couple of other races on the card. Spring Mile, is that one, Matt, that you've had a look at all?
Yeah, Spring Mile. There's a couple that sort of that caught my eye near Poet's Lady and Mascat. I think Poet's Lady's she's a filly who all of her form, admittedly at a lower level, it's all stacked up pretty well. She bumped into a listed winner at Hamilton on a most recent start. I think David Baronyard, they had a pretty lean 2020, but they've started this year really strongly. I suspect she might have a little bit more to come. And Mascat, he might be a little bit quirky, but he's been gelded over the winter. He's got bits and pieces of form to suggest that he can make his mark from a mark in the high 80s. And I think a big field scenario is probably going to suit him as well. But it's properly competitive, this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let's pin down some of these best bets then. Am I right in thinking, Matt, your kind of nomination here would be Danyar in the Lincoln itself?
Yeah, I really liked him. I was pretty keen to be against Brentford Hope as a starting point in this. I'm not convinced by him at all, away from soft ground in a more competitive race. So yeah, that Danyar for me. I think he'll run a big one, definitely.
DJ, talk to me about this Wolverhampton project that you've got for the evening card.
I say everybody's getting excited about the turf season, but I'm still much in all-weather mode. I spent most of the winter in and amongst these low-grade all-weather handicappers, so I'm staying down in that pond at the moment. And the one that I like, it's in the 8 o'clock at Wolverhampton, and it's Ancient Astronaut, who you go back to his form on his reappearance this year, it looks real strong form for the level. It was only in a 0 to 50, but he was a good second to Storm Melody that day. The first 2 pulled clear. There were 5 lengths back to the 3rd horse. And I think Ancient Astronaut probably would have gone very close to winning had Storm Melody not sort of hampered him a little bit in the closing stages. Now, he was only around a 2-1 shot next time. I just couldn't bring myself to say he was 11-5, I'm afraid. But he is soon poorly placed out wide on that occasion. He pulled hard, wasn't seen to best effect. But I think if he'd not have run there, we'd see him a much shorter price than what he's likely to be tomorrow. I think there's enough pace in here tomorrow to think that it's not going to get messy. Requited went forward last time. I think Flip Mode will go forward as well. And there's a couple of others that like to race prominent that will keep those honest. And I just think providing Ancient Astronaut gets a clear run through and we see him at his best, he's going to have a pretty good chance of going close around. I think some of the early prices have him about 8-1. I suspect he'll be closer to 5-6-1 on the off, but I'd have him shorter than that still.
Lovely stuff. Very reasonable case you've made for the one with the duck egg next to its name last time out. Fantastic stuff. My best bet of the weekend is going to be Global Esteem in the Unibret Spring Mile, the consolation race for the Lincoln. That's 2:35. I think he comes into this unexposed 4-year-old. He's definitely been underestimated in the betting and is just having his second run for the Chris Dwyer yard after quite an eye-catching prep over a sprint trip at Wolverhampton last time out. So anyway, don't forget you can get all of our previews and tips in full on sportinglife.com, where there's loads more in-depth analysis as well from Ben Linfoot, as well as the Timeform team, and my value bet column will be prominent on site too. So here's to a little bit of good luck this weekend, and I hope you've enjoyed this preview. Thanks for watching and enjoy the quality weekend's racing.